Planning a construction or a major renovation. So before you swing that first hammer, you need to know how banks will value these projects, because it's often different to the way builders or real estate agents might tell you. Hi, I'm Jeremy. Today we're going to dive into how lenders will assess valuations when we're dealing with new builds, extensions on the family home, or major renovations. And so whether you're building your dream home or flipping a property, understanding that upfront can save you massive headaches later on. So what's a construction or a renovation valuation? So it's an independent assessment where your property will be valued at what the value will be once the works are complete. So if you think about from a construction transaction, particularly when if we're doing renovations, we're doing what you call structural renovations, so we're knocking down key walls. The bank will want to understand what they think the project will be worth at the end, because that's going to be a key criteria they'll lend against. And so they'll figure out what they'll lend against you from an LVR point of view, what's their acceptable exposure on that property, and then help us understand the end equity position. So how does it work? So the value will receive up front if it's a major renovation, or if it's a complete knockdown rebuild, they'll receive the building contract. So typically that's going to be a fixed build contract that you've entered into with the builder. Some builders will want to arrange a cost plus, which many banks will not fund. But let's take, for example, you've entered into a fixed build price contract with a builder. It's a registered builder. There'll be a set progress schedule around when and how much and what percentage you'll pay the builder. You will provide that to the valuer. We'll provide the plans and the specs, the specifications, the plans from the council have been approved, and then what's going to go into the property. And the valuer will take that information, they'll go out and have a look at the site, and they'll deem what they think will be worth from a market point of view once it's complete. And so what you need to understand around this process is the valuer will come in from a conservative point of view. So it's quite important that we give that valuer some information around comparable sales to say this is what we think will be the property will be worth or once the project's done, and this is what's been selling in the area. And so it's really important that we give them some comparable sales, not just pie in the sky, that's what we think is going to be worth, but actually data to say this is what's sold, and show them comparables in terms of layouts, square footage, bedrooms, cars, any amenities that are like for like, and then what we think our property will be worth at the end. And so it's really important that the builder or the value will not always appreciate the cost into the construction. So when you're building into an area where there's typically a higher land value and the build cost is quite expensive, what you might find is it's going to be tricky for the valuer to appropriately mark up that build cost into this as complete valuation. I've had that experience where, some valuers haven't even appreciated the full cost of the construction in the uplift in the value. And so it's important to remember that's just their value, that's just their opinion. We can always go after second and third opinions to see what other valuers will deem that project worth, because it's going to be a key consideration when we're getting this financed. And so the second thing to think about is just from a expectation point of view. So again, on the other side, I've had clients where they've overcapitalized in their kitchen. Let's just say, for example, a reasonable kitchen may cost $50,000. The clients are happy. They know that their kitchen, they love their kitchen, they spend a lot of time in the kitchen. They're going to be spending $150,000 on that kitchen. That $150,000 may not come through that valuation because the value is deeming, is that something the market would pay on at arm's length? Probably not, but for some clients, having that high spec kitchen might be very important to them. So just understanding that there's always a medium for two expectations between what the valuer is going to deem it plus what the client's going to deem that worth. So who's this suitable for? And who's it not suitable for? Well, borrowers with minimal equity or a tight budget. And so that could be if you come into this deal with a high LVR on your current property, with your current lending against your current value, this could cause issues for this transaction. Yes, you may get that uplift on the as complete valuation, of course, but then we still have to fashion that existing debt. It's really important that we have some sort of game plan around that. Do you work in an LMI waived industry. Potentially you're, accountant, a lawyer, a medico, where you can go a high LVR, and if that valuation doesn't stack up, we can get that mortgage insurance waived as part of that specialty industry. That could be an option. But also, it's not suitable for people with tight budgets. To get to this stage, the borrower has to do an incredible amount of due diligence, engaging in people, getting the plans approved by council, work with an architect, working with town planner, heritage consultants, engineers, soil reports, acoustic reports. It can be incredibly expensive. So you make sure you got the budget to fund that to get to this stage before we can even go and order a valuation for construction purposes. So you need to make sure that you've got those funds to fund this. Could be anywhere between 20 and 100,000 plus, or you've got the equity existing that you can draw down to get to this stage. Properties in slower declining markets, and what that means is if you've got existing property there, the market is a little bit cooler, and there's been some negative growth in the area, going ahead and doing a construction loan and expecting a high end valuation can be very dangerous in terms of the risk around valuation. So you just have to be mindful. If you do that, again, you may have to put additional money into this deal to get the valuation and the equity difference squared away. And then finally, someone expecting a dollar for dollar uplift. So going back to our early example around someone that is putting $150,000 into their kitchen because that's something really important for them. Understand that many valuers may deem that as being overcapitalized, and that 150 cost may not be reflected in the valuation. They may mark that down to 100,000 as deemed as a market value of what would be someone on the market be willing to pay for that kitchen alone. And so that just means that if that's something you're comfortable with, and understanding that people will do things to their property because they may be there or plan to be there for 15 years plus, that's not a key consideration. If that's the case, again, you've got to have that difference to put in between the valuation and what you need to complete the actual construction with the builder. So before you lock in the builder or start spending money, it's crucial to speak to your broker about how the valuation could impact your loan and game planning some options that you've got. So if you want to chat through your plans, reach out to myself, Jeremy. I'd love to help. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, great projects start with great planning. I'm Jeremy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.